Hollywood sold a dream that it was a world of flawless faces, endless glamour, and golden spotlights that never dimmed. But behind the shimmering illusion was a quieter, crueler truth, one the studios fought to bury. The golden age of cinema wasn't just built on talent or beauty or luck. It was built on pain. Beneath the makeup and the costumes were scars, both visible and invisible. Stars who couldn't walk without braces. Leading men who spoke through broken teeth. Ingenues whose bodies were cut, burned, and remade in pursuit of a studio's idea of perfection. They were told to smile, to seduce, to sparkle, while the system that made them icons quietly destroyed them, and most never spoke about it. In the 1930s and 1940s, Hollywood was a factory, and actors were its most profitable products. Studios owned their stars like property. Every photograph, every strand of hair, every smile was carefully curated to sell tickets. But what the public didn't see were the contracts that dictated everything. What you ate, who you dated, how you stood, even how you breathed. For those born with physical differences or scars from childhood illness, the price of that perfection was especially high. The studios didn't just conceal imperfections, they erased them. Surgery was forced, painkillers were normalized, and silence was expected. The message was simple. If the audience sees the truth, your career is over. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Rita Hayworth, the face that wasn't her own. Few faces defined the golden age like Rita Hayworth's. To the world, she was the ultimate bombshell, a vision of fiery hair and sultry mystery. But that face wasn't entirely hers. When she first arrived in Hollywood as Margarita Cancino, she was told she looked too foreign for American audiences. Her Spanish heritage, once her pride, became her professional curse. The studio ordered electrolysis to raise her hairline and remove every trace of what they called her ethnic features. For hours she lay under searing heat while her hair was burned away, strand by strand. The smell of singed flesh filled the air. Then came the skin-lightening treatments, the grueling reshaping of her hair, and the new name, Rita Hayworth. They remade her completely, and in doing so, erased who she really was. Later in life, she confessed, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but they wake up with me, and they're disappointed." It wasn't just heartbreak. It was the story of a woman forced to play a character, even off-screen, because Hollywood couldn't accept her true self. Lon Chaney Sr., the man of 1,000 faces. Long before special effects, there was Lon Chaney, a man who could transform himself into monsters, phantoms, and villains using nothing more than his own ingenuity and pain tolerance. But the source of that creativity came from something deeper. Chaney was the child of 2 deaf parents. From an early age, he learned to communicate entirely through gesture and expression. Every twitch, every grimace, every shadow in his eyes told a story long before he ever stepped in front of a camera. He once said, "The only true language in the world is a kiss." To him, emotion was visual, not spoken. That skill, born from his parents' silence, became his greatest gift, but also his curse. He pushed his body to terrifying limits. Wires in his nose, fishhooks pulling his eyes back, harnesses that distorted his posture. He could barely breathe in some of his costumes, but he never broke character. Hollywood celebrated his genius, but ignored his pain. Behind the legend of the man of 1,000 faces was a man mutilating himself for an audience that wanted monsters more than men. Clark Gable, the smile built on blood. Clark Gable's smile was one of the most famous in movie history, confident, roguish, irresistible. But behind it was agony. In 1933, before he became the king of Hollywood, Gable contracted a severe gum infection. The treatment of the day was brutal. Nearly all his teeth were extracted, replaced with a set of ill-fitting dentures. The infection spread into his jawbone, causing constant pain and migraines. To mask the smell of decaying tissue, he chewed gum and drowned himself in aftershave. Directors complained that his breath was unbearable, but no one dared confront him. He was too valuable. The strain of working through the pain changed the way he spoke. That soft, lazy slur, the one fans adored, wasn't charm. It was a side effect of nerve damage. Every romantic line, every daring smirk came at a price he paid in blood. Katharine Hepburn, the woman who refused to break. Katharine Hepburn was unlike anyone else in Hollywood. Sharp-tongued, fiercely independent, and utterly unafraid to defy convention. But her confidence was hard-won. In her early 20s, Hepburn suffered from a neurological disorder that caused her hands to tremble uncontrollably. On screen, she trained herself to disguise it with precise, deliberate movements, clutching props, crossing her arms, or gesturing with theatrical grace. When reporters asked about her unique body language, she laughed it off. But privately, she rehearsed endlessly to keep her tremor hidden. She refused medication, fearing it would dull her mind. Instead, she channeled the tension into her voice, that crisp, crackling cadence that became her trademark. Hepburn turned what could have ended her career into a weapon of strength. She didn't let the system erase her. She reshaped the system around her. James Dean, trapped inside his own body. James Dean's life was brief, but his performances burned with an intensity that still feels raw today. What most audiences never knew was that Dean lived in constant physical discomfort. He suffered from severe myopia and recurring back pain caused by a congenital deformity. To hide it, he practiced a loose, slouching gait, what directors called rebel posture. In truth, it was his way of managing pain. His nearsightedness made it difficult to connect with other actors on set. In close-ups, he often stared slightly past them, creating that haunted, distant look that became his signature. When asked about his style, he said, "I'm not trying to be different. I just feel different." Dean's rebellion wasn't an act. It was a survival mechanism. The only way he could exist in a world that demanded perfection while punishing difference. Hedy Lamarr, the genius they called the most beautiful woman in the world. Hedy Lamarr was the face that could stop traffic and the mind that could have changed the world. Beneath her porcelain beauty was a scientific mind that invented frequency-hopping technology, the foundation of modern Wi-Fi. Yet, Hollywood never cared about her intellect. They only cared about her face. What they didn't show was how that face had been remade. Early in her career, she endured cosmetic surgeries that left her nerve endings damaged. Her lips were sliced and stitched to create the perfect smile. Her nose reshaped under crude anesthetic. She was in constant pain, but the cameras demanded perfection. To keep her expression soft, she trained herself to barely move her face, giving her that eerily flawless stillness audiences found mesmerizing. Her stillness wasn't mystery. It was numbness. Judy Garland, destroyed by perfection. If Hollywood had a favorite victim, it was Judy Garland. From the age of 13, she was molded into the perfect girl next door. Executives at MGM called her ugly duckling and forced her onto a cocktail of amphetamines to control her weight and sleep schedule. She was starved, drugged, and mocked, all to maintain an image that would sell tickets. When she collapsed, they injected her with stimulants and sent her back to set. By her 20s, Garland was addicted, exhausted, and terrified of food. She once told a friend, "They took away my childhood, and then they gave me a false one to sell back to the public." Her voice, rich, trembling, heartbreakingly human, was her rebellion. Every note of Somewhere Over the Rainbow was a cry for freedom she would never find. Montgomery Clift, broken and beautiful. Montgomery Clift was the golden boy of post-war Hollywood. Sensitive, intelligent, devastatingly handsome. But behind that fragile beauty lay a man fighting both inner and outer demons. In 1956, he crashed his car after leaving a party at Elizabeth Taylor's home. His face was shattered, jaw, nose, and cheekbone crushed. Taylor reportedly pulled his teeth from his throat to keep him from choking. The surgery saved his life, but left him permanently disfigured. Instead of retreating, Clift returned to work. He learned to move differently, to act through shadows and silence. His performances after the accident, suddenly last summer, The Misfits, were darker, rawer, filled with an ache that came from living inside a broken body. Hollywood loved him when he was perfect, They pitted him when he wasn't. But in truth, his most haunting performances came after the mask cracked. Marlene Dietrich, pain as a performance. Marlene Dietrich understood pain better than anyone because she used it as part of her art. In her 60s, desperate to maintain her image of eternal glamour, she subjected herself to torturous treatments. Corsets so tight they cut into her ribs, surgical tape, pulling her skin back until it bled. Her daughter later described how Dietrich's body was covered in scars. But on stage, she shimmered under the spotlight, immaculate, ageless, untouchable. When a journalist asked her why she went to such extremes, she simply said, "Because the audience believes what it sees. I just make sure it sees what it wants." Her suffering became her costume. The stories of these stars aren't isolated tragedies. They're symptoms of a system built on control, where appearance mattered more than humanity and silence was survival. For every famous name, there were dozens of forgotten ones, extras, dancers, chorus girls, who were pressured into surgeries, starvation, or addiction just to stay employable. Hollywood taught them that pain was professionalism. That perfection was worth more than personhood, and when they broke under the pressure, the system simply replaced them. It wasn't art. It was exploitation disguised as glamour. Today, their suffering lingers in ways we can still see. The obsession with flawless beauty, the culture of secrecy, the quiet normalization of cosmetic alteration, all born in those early studios. But their pain also created something else: defiance. Rita Hayworth's transformation exposed the cruelty of forced assimilation. Hepburn's tremor became a symbol of strength. Cliff's broken face redefined what beauty could be. Hedy Lamar's silence hid a genius the world eventually recognized. Their stories remind us that perfection is a prison, and that true beauty, the kind that lasts, often comes from the fractures beneath the surface. Hollywood still loves perfection. It still rewards the illusion more than the truth. But the ghosts of the golden age linger in every red carpet, every retouched photo, every story of a star who smiles through suffering. The next time you watch a classic film, look a little closer. Behind the eyeliner and the laughter, behind the glimmer of starlight, you might just see the shadows of those who paid the price so we could dream. They gave us beauty, and the world demanded their pain in return.